A psychiatrist tricks his patient into confessing to brutal murders. An aunt forces her young niece to pirouette in front of corpses, and a mutant factory worker tempts starving families to eat eyeball-infested popcorn. This is 1988, the year in horror.
I have come here to chew bubblegum and
talk books.
And I'm all out of bubblegum.
In 1988, George Michael's Faith was the #1 song, Journey's Greatest Hits was the #1 album, and the #1 movie of the year was Rain Man. 1988 also gave us some memorable horror movies, such as John Carpenter's They Live, David Cronenberg's Dead Ringers, and 1988 also gave us Chucky with the release of Child's Play. But what about horror in the bookstore? Well, that is the primary focus of this video, part 9 of my 10-part video retrospective of horror from the 1980s, where I go year to year, pick out 3 titles that were released in that year, read them with fresh eyes, and then report back to you with my honest opinions. If you're new here, I'm very happy that you've decided to stop by and give this channel a look. If you like horror and books, and you like content with opinions about horror and books, opinions from an aspiring cat hoarder with an aggressive lack of self-awareness, if that's your bag, then go ahead and hit that like button and subscribe to this channel if you haven't already, because I am making content for you. I'll begin this installment of the 1980s video retrospective like I begin each installment with a look at some great cover art from the decade. I have prepared a short montage of book covers from horror books that were released in 1988. This montage features the music of the great Russian/German composer Alfred Schnittke. Enjoy the montage, and I'll see you on the other side for an in-depth look at 1988. The year in horror.
It's showtime.
Kicking off our look at horror from 1988 is Cabal by Clive Barker. Now, I am a huge Clive Barker fan. He is one of my favorite, if not my very favorite writer of all time. Now, I think that Clive Barker, along with David Cronenberg, they are the best things to happen to horror in the 1980s. Now, Cabal was one of my first Clive Barker experiences. I read this back in 1992, just after finishing reading the Books of Blood. So this was my first Clive Barker novel, and I remember loving it back then. And then a few years ago, I decided to go through Clive Barker's entire catalog so I could do a ranking of all his novels. So I read Clive Barker again, and this was after having read many of his books. And it didn't work on me quite as well the second time around. Now, I had read, like I said, many of Clive Barker's novels by then, and so the bar was set very high. It's still a good book. There are some really cool scenes, like the mental patient with the razor blade. That was a cool scene. And I like the underground world with the creatures in it. But I had a difficult time connecting with the central character. I just found him too passive and too gullible. And he's meant to be in a relationship with this woman, but their relationship just felt unearned, uninspiring. Like they were in love just because they felt like they needed to be in love. There was really no reason for them to be together. So the book didn't quite work on me like his other books have. So Cabal is not a bad book, far from it, but by Clive Barker standards, I don't think it's a particularly good book. It is his weakest offering, I think. And the only book of his I could say that about. I mean, the only book of his I could say is not great. Clive Barker would then, as a director, go on and make a movie adaptation of this book called Nightbreed. And he had the brilliant idea to cast David Cronenberg as the psychiatrist. So that's cool.
Who's buried in Midian?
Ain't nothing but dead folk.
Somewhere, hidden from sight, closer than you might think, is a place that's not on any map. Midian.
Something's breeding there.
It looks a lot like hell, but they call it home.
There goes the neighborhood.
They're not pretty. They're not neighborly.
You'll come back now, you hear?
They're not even human. But this time, they're the good guys. From the imagination of Clive Barker comes Nightbreed.
You can't go down there!
They have only one enemy. A beast called man, sworn to destroy the Nightbreed.
Sounds like we're going head-to-head with the devil himself.
And only one chance. A man called Boone.
It's time to fight! Go get 'em, boys! I'll kill you all! What chance have we got? They're armed. So am I.
Out of your deepest fears and your darkest fantasies, Clive Barker brings you a startling new breed of adventure. I won't let you down. Nightbreed.
Up next, I read The Drive-In by Joe R. Lansdale, and I had a lot of fun with this book. Good times at the drive-in. We have a group of friends, group of young men in their early 20s, and they have a ritual where every Friday night they go to watch B-movie or low-budget horror movies at this enormous drive-in complex in Texas, with 6 humongous screens and thousands of people crammed into hundreds of cars to enjoy a night of debauchery and decadence and screaming bikini-clad women being chased by maniacs with power tools. The book bills itself as working with a B-movie horror nostalgia vibe to it, and while it does have that going for it, it has a lot more than that to offer. The book is a lot of fun with good characters, and the narrator is an eyewitness to the strange events that occur at the drive-in, and I really liked the narrator. The book even has heart. I mean, it has a lot going for it. I do not have any nostalgia for low-budget horror movies. That was never really my thing. I don't have any experience or any memories of ever going to the drive-in, and I've never been to Texas. So I did not benefit from any of the nostalgia strings the book may have been trying to pull, but that did not matter at all. The book does an excellent job setting the mood, setting the tone. It does a great job placing the reader in this singular setting of an enormous drive-in complex in Texas. An event occurs which traps everyone in the drive-in for a long time. I will not go into specifics as to what that event is, but then we have survivalist elements. We have the creation and then rapid collapse of society. We have the depravity of humankind. And we even have some otherworldly or supernatural events. So the book throws a lot at us, but surprisingly, I mean, it's a short book and it's an extremely well-focused book. I give The Drive-In a high recommendation. It's not scary or particularly gory or particularly violent. It goes more for fun, and it achieves that without ever being cheesy, which is quite an accomplishment. And it has heart, actually. This book was a hit, and Joe R. Lansdale would go on to turn it into a trilogy. Now, since this was my first experience with his work, I definitely want to read more from this author. I will happily go on to read other installments of this trilogy, and I want to check out other works from him. His catalog is ridiculous. Hundreds and hundreds of books and short stories. And some of them, he had quite a few hits as well. And I definitely look forward to checking out more from Joe R. Lansdale. Also, for this installment of the 1980s retrospective, I had my second John Saul experience. I read The Unloved. Now, a few months ago when I was doing my retrospective of horror from the 1970s, I had my first John Saul experience when I read his first book, Suffer the Children. And I found that book quite odd in its tone, but odd in a compelling way. So I was looking forward to reading another book from John Saul, and that opportunity came up in this retrospective, so I took it. The Unloved is a Southern Gothic horror tale. I'd say a paint-by-numbers Southern Gothic horror tale. We have a family from the north, husband, wife, one son, one daughter. The husband is originally from the south, and his mother is dying, so he and the family, they return to the south, and the mother they are visiting, she dies, and she leaves them the estate. We have the dark family secrets. We have the overbearing mother and the sister who had dreams of becoming a ballerina, but an accident kept her from fulfilling her dream, so she imposes that dream on her younger niece. We have the locals who are very nice to each other, but they harbor deep resentments. I have never read a book that was created by AI, but I feel like with The Unloved that I gotta look into what that experience would be like. Because The Unloved, it hits all the beats, it has all the tropes, but it's almost robotic in its execution. Like the tone is off. The tone was off in John Saul's first book, Suffer the Children, but it was off in a charming way that added a creepy strangeness to the story. Here, it's off, and it doesn't work for me. It was off. It's like it didn't have fun with its over-the-top premise, or didn't have fun with its setting. It suffers from what I think an AI creation would suffer from. Just the tone is off and robotic, and there's no soul to it, no joy. Since this was my second experience with John Saul's work, the question is, do I want to read more from this author? From what I gather, having perused his catalog and having seen an interview with him, I get the impression that John Saul took his role of being a writer in the same way that like a content creator would view their profession. I mean, he tries to copy the trends of the time, hit all the beats, and cash his checks. Now, I do not begrudge him that choice. I am in no position to pass judgments like that. I primarily make my living as a ghostwriter, spitting out tropey romance and mystery books, so I'm in no place to begrudge him his job. It just, as a reader, I gravitate towards writers who take a more investigative, exploratory approach to their creations. So I think I'm good for John Saul. Yeah. Now, since we are taking a look at 1988, you may be wondering,
are those Bugle Boy jeans that you're wearing?
The answer is no. No, these are not Bugle Boy jeans. I'm poor. I can't afford brand name jeans. Or maybe, on second thought, maybe they are Bugle Boy jeans. I don't know. I can't read Chinese. The point I'm trying to make is if you want to support this channel, which I know you do, do not send me money. Resist that temptation, please. Instead, buy yourself a book. I have a new book out called Edifice Complex. Kareem has his tenuous hold on reality further jeopardized when he develops an obsessive erotic relationship with a residential building set for demolition. It's a weird one, but a fun, interesting read, I think. I will make a video about it once I receive my author's copy sometime next week. but the book is available now. I'll leave links in the description box. I also have novellas and short story collections out. So buy yourself a book, enjoy it, leave a review. Your support is greatly appreciated and greatly needed, sadly enough, truth be told. Do you have any experience with the books or the authors I talked about in this video? What do you remember from 1988, and what are some of your favorite titles from that era? I always love connecting with you in the comment section. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in 1989.